Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.
I'm joined now by Chris Walton, a Democrat from Milwaukee, who's running to represent the 17th Assembly District. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
So you've worked on a number of campaigns over the years. What made you decide that you want to go to Madison and be a candidate yourself?
You know, I've had an interest in politics since I was 9 years old. My third grade teacher gave me the children's biography of JFK, and I fell in love with the Kennedys. And, you know, depending on how you look at my politics, it's been uphill or downhill from there. And I finally, I've been working on campaigns from city council level all the way up to the White House, all over the country. And I got a chance to come back here to Wisconsin, and I'm currently serving as the chair of the Milwaukee County Democratic Party. And so I've been really pushing candidates and pushing people to run for office in all these years. And they finally, I guess they all got tired of me pushing them to run, and they all turned on me. They were like, well, you know, maybe it's time for you to run. And I was like, you know, I've been thinking about it for years. And, you know, 2020 I expected to be more focused on doing things around the convention and trying to make sure we're pushing candidates to win in 2020. And, you know, right place, the right time, the door opened, and I decided to walk through it.
Well, if you're elected, there will definitely be no shortage of things to debate and vote on in Madison. One is the budget shortfall. The governor has warned that tax collections could fall by about $2 billion this year. How would you try to address that? Would you work to cut spending or look at raising taxes and fees to offset that loss?
Well, I think the quickest way to try and offset that loss is by taking the Medicaid expansion. That's $1 billion a year we could be bringing into the state of Wisconsin from the federal government. That is our taxpayer dollars that we've been sending to Washington, but we're not bringing back here to Wisconsin because the Republicans didn't want to give President Obama a win. So that would be my first step of trying to close that budget hole. And we'd be over halfway there at that point. I'm sure there are some ways we can find, a couple pennies here, a couple dollars there to try and do a few cuts. But I think we should try and be as flexible as possible, considering the situation we're in right now, to keep this budget balanced and make sure that it's something we can continue to move forward with all of our priorities. So we make sure that we're covering as many programs. We're not hurting the people who need these programs the most, and also making sure that we're making progress towards making a better state. Always moving forward as always.
Who do you think should draw the maps for the district lines? Governor Evers has been assembling his People's Maps Commission. Obviously, Republicans want to draw the maps themselves.
Yeah.
Who do you think should decide who your constituents are?
I think the constituents should be the ones who make that decision. I fully support an independent process of drawing these maps. I would strongly support that. I applaud Governor Evers for moving forward with this committee that he has proposed. I look forward to being part of that veto-proof majority that he will maintain his veto, so that we can overturn these horrible maps that the Republicans have gerrymandered.
When it comes to marijuana, there's been quite a bit of debate about legalizing medical marijuana, legalizing recreational marijuana. We've obviously seen a large interest in it in places like Illinois, with people crossing the border to buy it. What do you think should be legal in terms of marijuana usage?
I think we should make medical marijuana legal immediately here in the state of Wisconsin, and I also support the full legalization of marijuana here in the state of Wisconsin. But when we do create this legalization, I think we should also make sure that we are pardoning people who have had a past history of marijuana crimes or issues, making sure those are taken off the books and off of their records, because we can't keep punishing people for things that is already legal in other states, and now we're punishing them for something that's legal now in the state of Wisconsin, which will prohibit them from owning these dispensaries and everything. So I definitely would support full medical and recreational legalization here in the state of Wisconsin. And I would also want them to make sure we're expediting and expunging those records for people who have past marijuana crime issues.
What do you think the legislature could do to help address racial inequalities and disparities in Wisconsin, whether it's in the education system, in the criminal justice system, in the health arena? What could you do if you're elected?
One of the things that I would like to see done is the creation of a state-level Office of African American Affairs. I noticed that here in Milwaukee, we have the city level, we have the county level, but we don't have a state level to continue that ladder all the way up to the top. And that's something I would like to see done. I would also like to see us actually try and figure out what are the systemic problems that we face here in the state of Wisconsin, to make sure that all of the people of the state of Wisconsin are able to enjoy the entire state of Wisconsin. The fact of the matter is that almost 80+% of the African American population here in the state of Wisconsin lives between the downtown and the Milwaukee County, Ozaukee County line. We have to figure out how do we diversify this entire state. We have to figure out how we also bring more revenue into this community and into the communities that are currently suffering without getting it. One of my big issues is making sure the city of Milwaukee is getting its fair share of its money. Milwaukee creates almost a third of the state's budget, and we send all that to Madison, and we maybe on a good day get maybe 10% of that back. And that's what causes a lot of the disparities that are happening in this community. That's why we don't have as much economic development as we should. That's why our lead laterals haven't been replaced. That's why our public transportation system and parks used to be some of the best in the nation, and now our public transportation, our buses are the most expensive, and they don't go nearly as many places as they should. I want to make sure that we're bringing more of that money into the community as opposed to constantly taking from it and not putting anything back. And so that's actually one of my big issues.
Thank you. Wisconsin has some of the highest property taxes in the country, and as a result, school districts and local governments, what they can levy in property taxes is limited or capped. They can pass referendums, but otherwise can't exceed those caps. If you're elected, would you vote to keep those property tax caps in place or eliminate them? Do you think it should continue to go to referendum?
I think they should be allowed to actually have local control over these decisions. If the cities and the towns across the state of Wisconsin need to raise revenue, I think they should have that option. I don't think it's fair that the state is tying their hands of what they can and cannot do. I think it's very surprising that the party of local control is also the party that is saying we should centralize all these taxation laws in Madison as opposed to letting the towns and cities make their own decisions. One thing that I do support, and I've actually proposed a couple times on the campaign trail, is for folks who are on a fixed income, people who are retired and they own their homes. I think that we should follow the lead of some other states and actually change the state constitution and change the uniformity clause so that people who live in their homes can afford to remain in their homes if they're seniors and are retired and on fixed income. Now, of course, I'm not saying we should be, getting rid of property taxes for everybody over a certain age, because there are some people who are multimillionaires who they can still afford to pay property taxes and not worry about losing their homes. But there are people in my district here in the city of Milwaukee, especially in the areas where gentrification is heavy, who currently, they face having to pay these massive property tax bills, but they can't afford it. And if they lose their homes, where do they go? They end up having to move in with family. But studies have already proven time and time again that older Americans do better when they live in the homes that they've been living in. And they have better health outcomes other than going to a nursing home or have to live somewhere else because they know their homes. I have my great grandmother, she was a dementia patient, and she lived a very long life, but the problems really began to more set in after she left her home. And I want to make sure that we are taking care of our older citizens. And I think that relieving them of property tax payments when they're already on a fixed income would be one of those ways to do that.
In terms of local control, one other issue that's come up in Milwaukee, obviously, is wanting to have a local sales tax, a half-cent sales tax, for example. Mm-hmm. Do you think that local governments should be able to have those alternative sources of revenue so they're not so reliant on property taxes? Obviously, right now it's kind of whether the legislature will approve it.
Right. I do. I think that they should be able to set that. I think it should be totally up to the local control. One of the things that, I voted for when we passed it back in 2008 was the creation of that sales tax that would put more revenue into our transportation system. And the state legislature has still yet to act on that. So I believe that if the voters decide they want to add more money into their coffers and they want to pay more in taxes, that is perfectly fine. And if they voted it in a referendum as well. One of the things that I've noticed just talking to people in this community is the fact that the taxes, though they are high, they would have no problem paying the taxes if they were actually getting benefits of it. We sent over a third of the state's budget to Madison, and yet we don't have any of the benefits of it. If you go driving down a road in Mequon or driving down a road in Brookfield, you're smooth sailing down the road. And as soon as you cross that city line into Milwaukee, you're basically on a roller coaster at Six Flags. We have to change that and get more of our revenue back here in this city. And it's only fair. If we can even get half of the money that we're sending to the state of Wisconsin, I don't expect us to get the whole 30%, though, even though I would love that. I just want at least half of that money brought back here into the city, brought back here into the county so that we can fix our community. And it's our money. That's kind of the basis of my entire campaign is it's our money and I want it now. We send all this money to Washington, D.C., and we don't get that money back to cover the 100,000 plus people here in the state of Wisconsin who don't have health care insurance. We send a third of the state's budget to Madison, and yet our roads are reminiscent of roads driving in Baghdad. We have to fix that. We cannot keep going the same way.
Speaking of roads, Wisconsin has not found a stable way to pay for its highways and roads. Governor Evers had suggested raising the gas tax. Would you vote to raise the gas tax if you're elected? Do you think that's a way to fund roads?
If that is the best way possible that we can do that, I would support that. I know our gas tax hasn't been raised in quite some time, so there would be some need to, update it. But the gas tax, it hurts. It's a problem that really hurts a lot of people who are on the lower economic scale because they have to have gas and they have to have cars to get around. One of the things I think would be helpful to offset that is to also make sure we're putting more money in public transportation so that if you can't afford to pay more in gas, you can still get on a bus system that's going to be effective and get you around from place to place. That's why I support the creation of a regional transit authority for southeastern Wisconsin.
One of the areas that's also been hit by the pandemic is healthcare. Do you think that the legislature should make hospitals and healthcare providers a greater priority in the next state budget? Obviously, it's hard to predict what's going to happen with coronavirus, but yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
I do. I think we should try to prioritize our health community and our essential workers, especially right now with the coronavirus going on. And one way we can do that is by bringing that Medicaid expansion here into the state of Wisconsin. And that's $1 billion a year extra. We could be covering all these healthcare costs and helping the rural hospitals as well as inner city hospitals maintain their expenses and help them cover their budgets. Making sure that we're working to save hospitals and the continued hospitals that are going, like St. Joseph's here in the district.
If there's a business that follows all of the safety recommendations when it comes to COVID-19, do you think that they should be immune from lawsuits if somebody were to sue them over a coronavirus outbreak?
I would want to see more about exactly why, what reasons that they're saying that they got the coronavirus at their restaurant. If it's something that can be proven, then I think they should be held responsible for that. And that's why we have, investigations and we can go through and actually go step by step to see what the process was, how this person contracted the coronavirus and do more of the contact tracing. As far as just a blank check of, everybody's immune, I wouldn't support that, no.
Okay. Local governments obviously authorize a lot of public works projects. Do you think that as they're considering bids that preference should be given to Wisconsin companies and local companies for contractors? I do strongly believe we should be focusing on that and also doing a lot of the work that we're already doing with our communities. We have the Department of Public Works here in the city of Milwaukee actually use the Department of Public Works instead of going to get contractors from outside of the city to come in and work on that. I strongly support Senator Baldwin and what she's been saying with Buy American. And one of the things that I think we should add on to Buy American and build in Milwaukee. We have the old A.O. Smith plant right here off the side of the district.
that we could be building a lot of these different green jobs here in this community. You could be building solar panels. We could be building wind turbines right here in the city of Milwaukee because we have an industrial city, and that's our history. So I would like to see more things bought in Wisconsin, but build it in Milwaukee.
There's obviously interest in this seat. What do you think sets you apart from your opponents as you're heading into the final stretch of the August primary?
I bring a new perspective, I think. We have my opponent, Abel Eiselman, who is the Republican, and the other candidates. They all come bringing in the same issues of the past. I think we can bring in new ideas and a new perspective and a new way of doing things. I've heard some of the other candidates saying we should make sure we're bringing more of the youth into the community to be involved in leadership. Well, I'm the youngest person in the race. So what better way to make sure that we're bringing more youth into these races and into these campaigns than actually electing somebody who is of that generation? I think it's important that we are fighting to bring those new ideas. I think bringing new perspective, somebody who has served not just on the campaign side, but also on the governing side, because I worked previously with Mayor Barrett and the District Attorney Chisholm and former Governor Doyle. I think it brings a perspective that my other opponents don't have. So I think that with my passion, my long-term goals of what I want to do to make sure this city is the best place in the Midwest where we can continue to grow jobs and make things better for our community, I think it makes me the better candidate. And I look forward to serving the people of the 17th District.
Are there any other important campaign issues to you that I haven't asked you about that you want to add while we have a couple minutes left?
Sure. I think economic development is something that a lot of people have talked about in this district. The fact of the matter is that we have these two giant concrete slabs, either just adjacent with the old A.L. Smith site or right in the center of the district with the Midtown Shopping Center, that has so much potential that we could use and actually create and bring jobs into the community. The fact of the matter is that the city of Milwaukee doesn't have a movie theater within its borders. What better place than to put a movie theater than right there in the center of this district that would bring more satellite jobs around it? Because if you put a movie theater here, you're going to have to bring a restaurant. That restaurant is going to bring more entertainment options in. I would like to see basically a north side version of the Deer District brought in right into the heart of the north side of Milwaukee. And so that's something I would strongly support. And as I spoke about earlier, bringing more of those industrial green jobs right here into the old A.L. Smith site, making sure that we are building those wind turbines, making sure we're building those solar panels. I just think that we need a new, fresh perspective and some new eyes on the issues of the day. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. And I think that the people of the 17th District will agree with me on that.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I don't know if I'll see you at the DNC next month or not, because I don't know exactly who's going to be there. But
right. I got elected as a delegate. So I intend to be wherever they'll allow me to be.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And maybe I'll see you at the convention next month while I'm covering it.
That's the plan. We'll do an interview.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.